Praise the Lord. This is Dr. C. Dexter Wise III, and welcome to TNT, coming to you from Faith Ministries Church in Columbus, Ohio. Welcome to you, whether you're watching us from across the street, across the city, across the country, or across the continent. We are glad to have you tonight. We're especially glad to have you tonight because you've joined us right in the middle of blessings. In the middle of blessings, we are talking about how to kiss your blessings hello. We spent 6 weeks talking about how to kiss your behind goodbye. So guess what? Now we're going to kiss our blessings hello. All of those things that are behind us, we're going to put them behind us, and we're looking forward to the blessings that God has for us ahead of us. But we got to find out how to get them. And we find out how to get them by looking at Deuteronomy chapter 28, which is the blessings chapter. And we're going through it bit by bit, line by line, verse by verse, precept by precept, to find out how we can get these blessings that are coming to us and that have been promised to us. We have already talked about preconditioned blessings, and preconditioned blessings we found in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 1, which tells us here, it says that if you shall hearken diligently unto the voice of the Lord your God, to observe and to do all his commands which I command you this day, that the Lord thy God shall set thee on high above all the earth. And so it is preconditioned. In other words, it comes, but it has a condition. It has an if with it. And so we said that they are systematic, but not automatic. There is a system by which we get our blessings, but they are not automatic because they are preconditioned upon us obeying the voice of the Lord and doing it diligently and observing all of his commandments. So we talked about preconditioned blessings. And the last time we talked about pursuing blessings. And that comes from Deuteronomy chapter 28. And then we go to verse number 2. And verse 2 says, and all these blessings shall come on thee and overtake thee if thou shalt hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God. So these blessings that were systematic but not automatic, if you get past that and you actually have these blessings coming, they will overtake you. They will pursue you. And this is what we see here. These blessings will follow you. They will not only follow you, but they'll catch up with you, and then they will accompany you. So those are two things we've already talked about based on verse number 1 and verse number 2. And tonight we're going to verse number 3. And verse number 3 says, blessed shall thou be in the city, and blessed shall thou be, or blessed shall you be in the field. And based on verse number 3, we're going to be talking about place blessings. Place blessings. Okay? So now that you know where we are, what we're doing, let's bow for a word of prayer. Our Father and our God, we love you, we praise you, we thank you, and we do indeed bless you. We ask that as we have set aside this time tonight, that you might also set aside time to sit with us, to walk with us, to visit with us, to stay with us as we talk about your word and your will, find out where we are in it, and make sure that you are in us. In Jesus' name we pray, and for his sake. Amen. Okay, so by now you should be turned already to Deuteronomy chapter 28, and tonight we're going to be focusing on verse number 3, which says, blessed shall you be in the city, and blessed shall you be in the field. Place blessings. All right, the first thing I want to do is I want to emphasize, point out, and make a big deal about the fact that place matters. Place matters. Make no mistake about it. Place matters. And if you don't believe that place matters, you'll find out that you will never catch the bus if you're not standing in the right place, or if you're standing in the wrong place. You can be diligent, you can have a sincere motivation, but if you're standing on the bus stop for bus number 5 and it's actually you're trying to catch bus number 22, you're not going to catch it because you're in the wrong place. So you can't catch the bus if you're in the wrong place. Your friends will never get a letter that has been mailed to you or mailed to them if you mail it to the wrong place. You could have a check in there for $500. And if the address on the envelope is incorrect, they will never get it, because place matters. And then, of course, you will never stop being lost if you don't know where the right place is. If you're looking in the wrong place, if you have something that is lost and you look in the wrong place, you will not be able to find it. This is a simple point, but it is a very important point, and that is that place does matter. And over again, if you look in the Bible, you will see how much emphasis the Bible puts on place, how important being in the right place is, and what goes with being in that place. There's certain things that are assigned to a place, and if you're in that place, you will get those things that are assigned to you. It has nothing to do with anything else other than the fact that if you're in that place, it goes along with that place. Okay, so let me run down a list of several of the kinds of places that are listed in the Bible and some of the things that you can get when you get to that place. First thing I want to lift up is dwelling place. The Bible talks about a dwelling place. And to emphasize this, we can look at Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 5 through 7. And here's what it says. Deuteronomy chapter 12, verses 5 through 7. But you shall seek the place where the Lord your God chooses out of all your tribes to put his name for his dwelling place, for his dwelling place. And there you shall go. There you shall take your burnt offerings, your sacrifices, your tithes, the heave offerings of your hand, your vowed offerings, your freewill offerings, and the firstborn of your herds and your flocks. And there, at that place, you shall eat before the Lord your God, and you shall rejoice in all to which you have put your hand, you and your households, in which the Lord your God has blessed you. And so this is a dwelling place, and this is the dwelling place where the Lord has chosen to have his name dwell. And when you go to the place that he has assigned you, this is what he's telling Israel. You go to the place that I have assigned you and that I have chosen to put my name there. My name is going to dwell there. And if you go there, you're going to find out at the end of this verse, it says that you and your household, you shall be blessed. The Lord has blessed it, and he's going to bless you if you get to his dwelling place. We see also this notion of dwelling place in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 22. Actually, we see it verses 19 through 22. Paul is talking about the church as a building, and then he talks about the church as a body. Here's what he says. This is Ephesians 2, 19 through 22. Now, therefore, you are no longer strangers and foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, having been built on the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Jesus Christ himself being the chief cornerstone. He's talking about the church as a building, and Jesus is the cornerstone of that building, in whom the whole building being fitted together, whole building is put together, grows into a holy temple into the Lord, in the Lord, in whom, now here's the part I want you to see, in whom you also are being built together for a dwelling place of God in the Spirit. So Paul is saying that if you look at the church, you can look at the church as a building. And if you look at the church as a building, Jesus is the chief cornerstone of that building. That's the rock, that's the stone that the whole thing is resting on. And he makes you and me a building, and he dwells in us. He has his dwelling in us. So we become a dwelling place for the Spirit of God. So the first thing I want you to see in terms of an example of place in the Bible is dwelling place, a place where God dwells, his name dwells, and if you get to that place, you're going to be blessed. And then, of course, a place where the Spirit of God dwells, that's you. He will dwell in you as a holy temple. Then we see a hiding place. For a hiding place, we look at Psalm 32, verse 7. And these are the words that David says about God. He says, "You are my hiding place. You shall preserve me from trouble. You shall surround me with songs of deliverance." God, you are my hiding place. If I can get to that hiding place, I'm going to be surrounded by songs. I'm going to be delivered. I'm going to be preserved from trouble because I can get to you who happen to be my hiding place. Then the secret place, secret place. Of course, we all know about the secret place, and we have thought about Psalm number 91, verses 1 through 2, where it says, he who dwells in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. I will say of the Lord, he is my refuge and my fortress. In him, my God, in him I will trust. So this is the secret place, and in this secret place, under his shadow, you can find refuge and a fortress. Then we see also in the Bible a holy place. Psalm 24, verses 1 through 5. The earth is the Lord's, and all its fullness, the world and those who dwell therein. For he has founded it upon the seas, and established it upon the waters. Who may ascend into the hill of the Lord? Or who may stand in his holy place, in his holy place? He who has clean hands and a pure heart, who has not lifted up his soul to an idol, nor sworn deceitfully, he shall receive the blessing from the Lord and righteousness from the God of his salvation. If you can get to the holy place, and the holy place in general is the city of Jerusalem, and the holy place in particular is the temple or the house of God. And if you can get to that place, if you can get to the holy place, according to this Psalm 24, it says that you shall receive the blessing from the Lord. What I'm trying to emphasize to you and trying to get you to see, that the Bible associates blessings with places, whether it is his dwelling place, whether it is his secret place, whether it is his holy place, whatever kind of place it is. If you can get to those places, according to the Bible, there are blessings that flow with those places. It keeps on talking, because here are other examples. A solitary place. In Mark chapter 1, verse 35, it says, now in the morning, having risen a long while before daylight, he went out and departed to a solitary place, and there he prayed. So this talks about Jesus getting up early in the morning, and it's funny that Jesus is himself the one to whom we pray, but Jesus prayed. And he not only prayed, but he got up, he got away, he got early in the morning, and he went to a solitary place. There's a great deal of blessing that can be found in getting alone with God. Getting alone with God. It is wonderful to be able to worship in the company of people. And the more that we are in this lockdown, the more we realize how blessed we are when we can gather together to worship. But there's something to be said, and nothing to be compared with going to God in a solitary place. Solitary means he was by himself, just one-on-one with God. And it was in that place that he prayed. In John chapter 14, verses 1 through 3, we find another place, and that is a prepared place. Let not your heart be troubled. You believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, a prepared place. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you to myself, that where I am, there you may be also. And so Jesus is announcing to his disciples that he is about to leave them. He's about to die. He's about to be crucified. And he's not only going to leave them in terms of death, he's going to leave them in terms of his physical presence. But he says, I'm going to prepare a place for you. So it's not that I'm just leaving you. I'm leaving to make a place ready for you. And then once it gets ready, I'm coming back for you. So the blessings that we will receive by being in the presence of the Lord will come when we get to that place that he has prepared for us. Then we have in Numbers chapter 35, verses 9 through 12, a safe place. This may be a place that you may have heard of, but may not have spent too much time thinking about. It's called a city of refuge, a safe place. Numbers 35, 9 through 12 says, Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel and say to them, When you cross the Jordan into the land of Canaan, then you shall appoint cities to be cities of refuge for you. Cities of refuge for you. That the manslayer who kills any person accidentally may flee there. They shall be cities of refuge for you from the avenger, that the manslayer may not die until he stands before the congregation in judgment. And so these cities of refuge were set up all throughout Israel, and they were set up so that if a person accidentally killed another person, they could run to that city of refuge, and they would be protected from all of the family and kinsfolk of the person that they killed. Because if they were not in that city, those people may rise up and kill them. But until the time that they had their court trial, until the time that they were able to have their case adjudicated by the people of Israel, or the people in whose land they dwell, by the judges and by the priests and so forth, they were safe in these cities of refuge. So a manslayer is a person who has killed a person. And according to this biblical principle, if you could get to a city of refuge, then you would be safe. So city of refuge is more than just a safe place like a fortress, but it is a place, a refugee. It is a place where a person can flee. They can flee and they can be safe from those who are out to get them and literally out to kill them. So it is a safe place. And then we find in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, verses 12 through 14, we find a chosen place. A chosen place. Now, this is a passage that we quote very often, but I don't think we understand the significance of the place that goes along with the verse that we quote. 2 Chronicles 7, 12 through 14. Then the Lord appeared to Solomon by night and said to him, I have heard your prayer, and I have chosen this place. This is after the dedication of the temple. Solomon has built the temple, and then he goes to God and says, okay, God, I built this temple, but I want you to make this place special. I want you to make this not just another building. I want you to make this a place that if people can get to this place, or people can look toward this place, or if people can even think about this place, that things will be available to them that would not be available otherwise. And so God is responding to Solomon's request to make that temple special, and he's saying to him, I have heard your prayer, and I've chosen this place, the temple, for myself as a house of sacrifice. I've chosen this. You built it, but I chose it. And I chose it as a house for myself, a place for myself, a house of sacrifice. And here's the verses that we often quote. When I shut up heaven and there is no rain, or command the locusts to devour the land, or send pestilence among my people, ding, 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 here it comes. If my people who are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and heal their land. And so the reason why I'm going to heal their land, I'm going to forgive their sins, the reason why I'm going to do this is because they got to this place. And this place is a chosen place. And it's chosen because God says, I have chosen this place for myself as a house of sacrifice. Okay, so I just went through a little exercise here to point something out to you, and that is that place matters. Place matters. There are certain blessings that are associated with certain places. If you can get to those places, if you can get in those spaces, then you will be the recipient of, you will be the beneficiary of the blessings that go with that place. Okay, let me run that down. I'll run those by you again so that you have them. I talked about a dwelling place, and that's Ephesians chapter 2, verses 22, actually verses 19 through 22. I also talked about Deuteronomy 12, verses 5 through 7, as a dwelling place, then a hiding place, Psalm 32, verse 7, a secret place, Psalm 91, verses 1 through 2, a holy place, Psalm 24, verses 1 through 5, a solitary place, Mark 1, verse 35, a prepared place, John 14, 1 through 3, a safe place, Numbers 35, 9 through 12, and a chosen place, 2 Chronicles 7, 12 through 14. Place matters. Now, what we learn from what I've just told you is that place matters. However, what we come to learn from this text today, Deuteronomy chapter 28, verses 1 through 3, in fact, verse 3, we learn that when it comes to our blessings, place does not matter as much as you think. When it comes to our blessings, even though I've just run down that list of so many places you can get to, and once you get to those places, the blessings are connected to those places. When you look at Deuteronomy 28:3, you discover that place does not matter as much as you might think. What we find out from this very verse is, number one, that the blessings of God will come upon you wherever you are. Wherever you are. These blessings are not connected to the place as much as they are connected to you. Blessed shall you be. The blessings are tied to you, and they're tied to you because you are the one that's tied to God through obedience. And why is this a good point? It's a good point, and it's a great point because it realizes that you don't have to be focused so much on the place as being focused on yourself, focused on you. These blessings will come upon you wherever you are. And then secondly, they will come upon you wherever you go. Blessed, if you're in the city, you get them. If you're in the field, you get them. Why? Because they're attached to you. They're not attached to the city. They're not attached to the field. So you can be in the country and move to the city and still be blessed. You can be in the city and move to the country and still be blessed. You can be in a house or an apartment and still be blessed. You can be in a hospital, or you can be in some other kind of place, but you can still be blessed. It does not matter whether you're in the city or whether you're in the country. You're still going to be blessed because the blessing comes to you. And then thirdly, wherever you plan to be, either or, it does not matter. The blessing shall come to you in your space, wherever that space happens to be. And what that tells us is, it tells us that, number one, God is not limited by place. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. All of that stuff belongs to God. And not only does it all belong to God, but it's under God's jurisdiction. It's within God's purview. It's within God's power. It's within God's reach. And so no matter what place you go to, it all belongs to God. And this ought to give you a sense of calm, a sense of peace, a sense of rejoicing, so that no matter where you go, you cannot walk out of, you cannot cross a line that puts you away from the jurisdiction of God. So that means that when you're home and you go to the service, wherever they station you, God is there. If you're going to college for the first time and now you're living in a dormitory away from home, wherever your dormitory is, God is there. If you're going from your house to the hospital and they roll you in an operating room, God is there. It does not matter where you go. It does not matter what space you occupy. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and the world and they that dwell therein. And so if God owns all of that, then what you need to understand is that God is not limited by place. There are no doors that have a sign on them that says God is not allowed. And when you get on the other side of that door, God can't come in. There are no places that have a line around it that it keeps the Spirit of God from moving in. The Spirit of God may have to fight. The Spirit of God may have to do warfare, as it was in the 10th chapter of Daniel. But guess what? The fact of the matter is that all places are under the jurisdiction of God, and God is not limited by place. Somebody should be blessed by this today, because they are in situations, they are in places, they are in spaces, they are in conditions, they are in predicaments, and it seems like I am in a godless place. Oh my God. Where I work is a godless place. Where I live is a godless place. My family is a godless place. This house over here is a godless place. This nation is a godless place. But I need you to know right now that the blessings of God are not limited by your place, because the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and they that dwell therein. So relax. Wherever you go, God is there. And God, you don't have to wait for God to catch up with you, because God is not only there, God is here. He's with you as you go, and he's there when you arrive. That is a big deal. It seems like a very simple point, but it is a major point that will take some of the stress out of your life, no matter where you go, no matter what you are going to. Wherever you go and wherever you get there, God is there. God is in charge there. God is sovereign there. And he is not restricted from bringing his blessings to you when you get to that place. God is not limited by place. Secondly, your blessings are not necessarily tied to a place. Now, I just gave you a list of all of these places in scripture that have blessings tied to them. But that's not the only way you get a blessing, because all of your blessings are not tied to a physical, geographical space. Your blessings can come to you, as we have just said, anywhere, anyhow, because they are not tied to the space, they are tied to you. And that is good news. That is real good news, because people can put you out of a place and you're like, oh my God, I'm out of my blessing. People can put you out of a space and say, all of a sudden, I don't have anything that will be coming to me that will be positive. I tell you, here's an example right now. We are locked down, as it were, technically and practically, from being and worshiping in our church as a church family. We are not in that place. There's no question in my mind that 2747 Agler Road, that place where Faith Ministries church building exists, is a blessed place. It is a blessed place. It took blessings to get it paid out the ground, get the land paid for. It took blessings to get the plans drawn. It took blessings for us to get that thing built. It took blessings for us to get the finance. I mean, there's blessings in that place. And those of you who are looking at me right now, many of you will know that you have been blessed in that place. You had your babies blessed. You were baptized in that place. Some of you were married in that place. And many of you, if not most of you, you have come to that place on a regular basis. You've lifted up your hands. You've been in the presence of the Lord. You've heard blessed singing. You've heard blessed preaching. You've heard blessed teaching. And you even had some blessed fried chicken. It's a blessed place. We know the place is blessed. So that means that if that place is blessed and we can't go to that place, are we in trouble? Are we blessing less because we can't go to that place? No. When you go to that place, you're blessed. But your blessings are not necessarily tied to that place. We need to understand that. We need to understand that, because so many people see the church as a building and not as a body. The church as a building and not as a body. And when you take away the building, they're lost, because they don't understand the church building is just the house for the body. Just like your spirit is inside of your body and the body is the house for your spirit. I mean, you have a body and it's you, and people see your body and they recognize you, but the real you is not your body. The real you is the you inside of your body. And when we have been unable to meet in our body, called the building, the church building, we have not ceased to exist, because we are a body and our blessings have not been tied to that place. And I don't know about you, but I'm glad about that, because the Lord's still been blessing me, even though we've not been in that place. The Lord's still been feeding me, even though we've not been in that place. The Lord still had a roof over my head, even though we've not been in that place. The Lord has opened doors for me, even though we have not been in that place. And that's not just my testimony, but that's your testimony too, because your blessings are not necessarily tied to a place. Why is this important? Because people will threaten you by telling you, I will take you out of your place. Well, you may take me out of my place, but you can't take me out of my blessing, because my blessing is not tied to that place. That's deep, y'all. That is very deep, very deep. There are places of blessing, but my place is not necessarily tied to a physical, geographical place. My blessings are tied, and this is the third point, to my relationship with God. Your relationship to God is more important than your physical place, because the most important place of blessings is the place of relationship that you have with God. Your place in Him is more important than any place you have in the earth. That's the most important thing I have said. I've been talking for however long I've been talking, but that's the most important thing that I have said. And you need to write that down. Your place in Him is more important than any other place in the earth. And what we try to do is we try to maneuver, we try to manipulate, we try to manhandle ourselves into a place, because we think that if we get in that place, then all these blessings will come to us. If I get myself next to him or next to her, that's where my blessings are. If I get myself in this position with this title, that's where my blessings are. If I get myself in that neighborhood, that's where my blessings are. If I get myself in this car, that's where my blessings are. And so of course, in certain neighborhoods, of course, with certain people, of course, in certain cars, of course, in certain houses, of course, in certain positions, there are blessings that go with them, but that's not the most important place in the world. The most important place in the world is your relationship with God. Somebody said the safest place in the world is in the arms of the Lord. And so if we're trying to get ourselves in a place of blessing, we got to get ourselves in him. We got to get ourselves next to him. We got to get ourselves close to him. We got to get ourselves in obedience to him. We got to get ourselves in line with him. That's the place of blessing. And if relationship with him is the place of blessing, then it does not matter what your relationship is with a physical place. That's why Abraham packed up and left Ur, because it ain't about Ur, it's about my relationship with him. That's why Jesus said the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have their nests, but the Son of Man had nowhere to lay his head. I ain't stressed, because it's all about my relationship with him. That's why Job said, though he slay me, yet will I trust in him. I done lost all this stuff, but hey, I'm hurting, I'm sad, I'm crying, I'm even in sackcloth and ashes. But you know what? It's not about that. It's about my relationship with him. And if we're looking for blessings, we have to start with getting in the place of being in relationship with God. People will try to give you a formula and say, if you do this, if you send me $12.47, that's not 48 cents, not 46 cents, but send me $12.46, I guarantee you the Lord gonna bless you. Well, number one, I'm already blessed. But my blessing does not come in relationship to sending you $12.46 or 47 cents. It comes in my being in relationship with him. That's the place where you want to be. That's the place where you want to live. That's the place where you want to serve. That's the place where you want to give. That's the place where you want to worship in relationship to him. And so you can be in the city, you can be in the field. It doesn't matter if your relationship with him is right. If your relationship with him is right, all these blessings are going to overtake you, whether you're in the city or whether you're in the field. If your relationship with him is not right, it don't make no difference whether you're in the city or whether you're in the field. They won't catch up with you. They won't come to you because it's about your relationship with him. Do you see what I'm saying? And so these blessings are place blessings, but the place where you go to get the blessing is not a space. It is your relationship with God. And that's why we have to seek to be right with God. That's why we have to seek to be one with God, because it is there from which the blessings flow. It is there that we receive blessings beyond our expectation and imagination. It is there that we become blessed just by being in his presence. So I've said two things that may seem contradictory to you, but they're not really contradictory. I started off by telling you that there are physical, geographical, tangible places that God has chosen to bless. He has chosen to identify, and he has put his name there. He has put blessings there. And if you can get to those places, you will receive the blessings that are attached to those places. But then I told you that these blessings in Deuteronomy chapter 28, God's taking the lid off of them. These things that are going to chase you, it don't make no difference where you are. Because the place that you need to be in to get these blessings is not a physical place, but it's a spiritual place in relationship with him. And so let's spend more time trying to get into God than getting into a position or into a place or into a space. Because once we get into God, then all of these things that we have sought will flow towards us. They will follow us. They will overtake us. They will accompany us, and they will walk with us all the way. You shall be blessed in the city, blessed in the field, not just because of the field or the city, but because of your relationship and because of your place in him. All right, let's bow for a word of prayer. Our Father and our God, we love you, we praise you, we thank you, we bless you for giving us this simple but wonderful revelation that the place we need to be to find blessings is right in you. Not a house, not a physical space, not a job, not getting next to a person, but getting next to you. And once we get in relationship with you, once we get in that place, then all these things will come upon us. They'll overtake us, and they will find us and bless us as you have promised. In Jesus' name we pray, and for his sake, amen. Okay, we've been talking about place blessings. I'm going to step away for just a second, and then I'm going to come back and going to answer your questions. Whatever your questions that you have, I want you to type them in. If you haven't already, type them in, and we will answer those questions about your place blessings in just a few seconds. We enjoy talking with you, and I trust you enjoy talking with us. This gives me a chance to talk directly to you and make sure that you actually get it. I have a heart for that. I really have a heart for that, because when I was growing up, it just seemed to me like preachers and teachers was trying to keep this stuff a secret. Like they didn't want you to get it. You know, they would talk for an hour and a half and you leave and say, I don't get it. They were talking big words you didn't understand. They talking these theological concepts and verbs and phrases, and they sound good, but you didn't know what they were talking about. And you leave the church and say, well, that was good, but you aren't any better because you don't understand anymore. And that's why, to me, it is so very important, not just that you hear it, but that you understand it. Not that you just can write it down, but it makes sense to you, so that you can explain it to somebody else. And that's why I'm taking the time that after I've talked to you about these place blessings, I want to make sure you're in the right place to get all these blessings. So don't touch that dial, touch those keys, type in your questions. I'll be back in just a few minutes, and I'll answer your questions. God bless you. I'll see you in a few. Okay, praise the Lord. We're back. We've been talking, as you know, about place blessings all this time this evening. But before I get to your questions, I want to go back to a question that was asked on last week. Last week, we were talking about pursuing blessings, and someone asked the question, can your spouse block your blessings? Can your spouse block your blessings? And I gave a response, and I told them they could go to 1 Corinthians chapter 7. And then as I said that, I second guessed myself, and I said, no, it's not in 1 Corinthians, it's in 2 Corinthians chapter 6, and it's actually not in 6, it's in 7. So there you go, follow your first mind. Let me just share with you what that passage says, and here's the question. Can your spouse, unbelieving spouse, block your blessing, and what should you do about that? Well, in 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 12, it says, but to the rest I speak, or speak I, not the Lord. And here's an instance where Paul is giving advice to the church, and he's making a distinction between what he thinks and what the Lord thinks. And that's interesting, because many people don't do that. Everything that comes out of their mouth is the Lord talking. But Paul is saying here, listen, this is what I think. This is what I think. He says in verse number 12, to the rest speak I, not the Lord. If any brother hath a wife that believeth not, and she be pleased to dwell with him, let him not put her away. Okay? He's a believer. She's not a believer. She's satisfied with him. Leave it alone. Verse 13. And the woman which hath a husband that believeth not, and if he be pleased to dwell with her, let her not leave him. Okay, so now the thing is flipped, where the woman is the believer and the man doesn't believe, and Paul says, let her not leave him. And here's why he says it in verse 14. He says, for the unbelieving husband is sanctified by the wife, and the unbelieving wife is sanctified by the husband. Else were your children unclean, but now they are holy. He says, so if one is saved and the other is not, then the salvation of the one covers and sanctifies the one that is not, and that sanctification covers the whole family, including the children. Then he goes on to say in verse number 15, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. Now here he goes in verse 16. So in 15 he says, well, if they decide to leave, it's okay. God doesn't require you to be in such bondage. But if you decide to stay, that's okay too. And in verse 16 he tells you why. For what knowest thou, O wife, whether thou shalt save thy husband, or knowest thou, O man, whether thou shalt save thy wife? And so he basically comes down on the side of this. Okay, it does seem to be the case that you have a godly person with an ungodly spouse, but the godliness of the one that is godly can sanctify the other, and who knows, in time that godliness might win that other spouse. So that's the answer to the question. I kind of messed it up last week by not trusting myself and my first instincts, but there it is. It is possible for a spouse to limit some of the blessings that you have, because they won't allow you to be free to do some of the things that God requires you to do to get those blessings. However, Paul says very clearly that you should not necessarily leave that person, because your being there may sanctify them, it may sanctify your children, and ultimately may lead to their salvation. Okay, so I wonder now, as we are talking here, if we have any questions. I'd like to answer those questions that you have. I have a question here. That's good. Let me see if I can pop this up on the big screen so I can actually read from a distance. Okay, I concur, Doc. One has to come away with understanding, or it's just a waste of time. Thank you, Rebecca Bateman. We do want you to understand. We don't want you to just be watching to be watching. We want you to walk away and come away from these teachings on Tuesday night a better disciple and better understanding. Do we have any other comments or questions that we can respond to tonight? What about being unequally yoked? Well, that's the perfect definition of unequally yoked. Unequally yoked is when you have one person who is not saved and the other person who is, and then they are joined together. And what unequally yoked means is it's a farming analogy. So when you have a yoke, typically you have a yoke of oxen is typically two oxes or oxen, and you have these two little holes, made out of wood, and you put one ox in one, put another ox in another. If the two oxes are similar in size and strength, they are equally yoked and they can pull together. But if you put an ox in one and a kitten in another, that's unequally yoked. They won't be able to pull together because they're not even in what they do. And basically what he's talking about when he says being unequally yoked is you are connected with a person or a partner that does not pull along with you, that is not on the same page with you, that is not equal to you, and not equal in the sense of being exactly like you, but being your peer in more ways than one. And sometimes when we talk about people, they're not equally yoked, and they discover that later on in their relationship. They discover that everybody's not pulling their weight, everybody's not pulling the same way, and in fact everybody doesn't have the same strength to pull. Now in every relationship, trust me, every relationship, my wife and I have been married for almost 50 years. We're getting up there, almost 50 years. It's not a 50-50 proposition. It's a 100% proposition. And sometimes in marriage, it seems to you that this one is pulling more than the other one. But if they are together in terms of their capabilities, in terms of their skills, in terms of their commitments, it's going to make it a whole lot easier to do. So when you go online looking for a date, looking for a partner, you better make sure that the person checks off all of those boxes, because it's going to show up later on. If those persons are not equally yoked, it's going to make the relationship more difficult. Not impossible, but more difficult. Another question. Can you give a spiritual example of God's presence? Well, every example of God's presence is spiritual, because God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and in truth. But what I mean by God's presence is, and this may sound spooky and crazy to you, but if it's happened to you, you'll know what I mean. I mean that when you are in a room, when you're in a space, when you're in a condition, that you have a sense that it's more than you in the room. You have a sense of his spirit. You have a sense. You can feel it. You can sense it. You can tell that you are not alone. Sometimes it happens when you are by yourself. Sometimes it happens when you're in a crowd, as in worship. But it is an indescribable feeling that there is a presence bigger than you, larger than you, favorable to you, not some spooky demonic spirit, but something that's on your side, something that wants you to do well, something that wants to bless you. You get a sense of that feeling. And sometimes you feel it more than others. Obviously, it's like air. The air is always there, but you feel it most when the wind comes and it's stirred up. And so when we talk about the spiritual presence of God, we know that God is everywhere. God is omnipresent. And so therefore, God is everywhere. But we sense his spirit when he becomes wind and he gets stirred up. He gets stirred up when you hear a certain song. He gets stirred up when you read a certain scripture. He gets stirred up when you hear certain people preach. He gets stirred up when you think about various things. Sometimes, I can just go look at the sky, or look at a mountain, or look at Niagara Falls, or I can get stirred up by looking at that. The song says, "Oh Lord, my God, how awesome wonder." That I think, consider all the world thy hands have made. When you think about the beauty, the grandeur of God, it stirs that spirit up. So it's not like it's something that you can see on a needle. It's not like Ghostbusters where you can come in with a meter and say, oops, God is here. But it's something that you can feel. It's something that you can sense. Fanny Riley. Fanny Riley. She just jumped in my mind right now. Fanny Riley used to sing that song, "There's a sweet, sweet spirit in this place, and it must be the spirit of the Lord." I can hear her now singing in that soprano voice, and that's what we mean when we say the presence of the Lord. There's a spirit that you can actually feel. It's difficult for me to describe it to you, but if it's happened to you, you know what I mean. And if it hasn't happened to you, you will know when it does. You have a sense that there is somebody bigger than you, other than you, that is present with you and means you good. Okay? Another question. Troubled heart question. If God already knows what's going to happen and he already has it figured out, why does he allow us to suffer? Well, that's a good question. And I wish it were a new question, but it's not. It's a question that goes all the way back, at least as far as Job, if not before that. You know, why do the righteous suffer? And why do the wicked prosper? God already knows what's going to happen. So why can't he just skip the middle and go straight to the end? Well, I wish I knew to give you an answer to say definitively, I know, but I don't. But let me give you some direction to that. God already knows what's going to happen in the end, but he also knows that the beginning, that the middle is important to get you to the end. So it's not that we can just skip from the beginning to the end and say, rah, rah, rah. The middle is important to your development, to your growth, to his glory, all of those things that come in the end. It's sort of like when you do an algebra equation, your teacher, she gives you a formula, and she puts the formula there, you're supposed to figure it out, and you just write 27. Well, no. I want to see your work. I want to see how you got the 27. And quiet as it's kept, where you are today, where I am today, is not just a matter of us jumping from here to here. It's a matter of God taking us through that process. And by the time we come out that process, we are a different person. We are a developed person. We are a more mature person. We are a stronger person. And many times the process of development is not fun. The process of development is not easy, but that pain, that process leads to a prosperity at the end that you could not have had you not gone through the process. I heard somebody, a commentator, say on Sunday when they were talking about Tom Brady, and they were saying a lot of people talk about Tom Brady, about how good he is and everything, but they don't know that he's in the gym every morning at 5 o'clock, that he has a special diet, that he has a special regimen, he has a special training. His life is so meticulously involved in what he does that all you see him trotting out on the field, throwing bombs and, making touchdowns. But what you don't see is the process, the pain, the suffering, the development, the sacrifice that leads to his victory. Now, I'm not a Tom Brady fan, but I got to respect the man and give him his props because of the process. And so, yes, sometimes the suffering we go through is terrible. Jesus said, if you can figure this thing out where you can get me to save the world without drinking this cup, will you please do that before these soldiers get here? But if you can't, nevertheless, not my will, but yours be done. And so we have incarnation, he becomes flesh. We have crucifixion, he suffers and dies. And then we have resurrection, he gets the victory. So yes, sometimes there's a crucifixion in the middle of that process, and it ain't fun. But on the other side of the crucifixion is a resurrection, and the resurrection overpowers, overshadows. It doesn't erase, but it overpowers, overshadows, and makes that person who comes out on the other side. Jesus said, now I got all power. Okay? Another question. How do you tell if the blessing is truly coming from God? Does the devil send you things to trick you into believing it's a blessing? That is a great question, and that's the question I've been waiting for, Tina, because people assume that because a person has things, that everything they have came from God. So the drug dealer he's got a nice car, and he's got a gold chain around his neck, and he's got money in his pocket all the time. How come he got money, and the young person who's trying to go to school, they barely make it, they working in McDonald's? That don't sound right. But you need to understand that God is not the only one who blesses people. Now, remember I said a blessing is transferring goodness from one place to the other. God's not the only one with goodness. He's one that has the most goodness. He's the one that has the most consistent goodness, but he's not the only one with goodness. Do you remember that when Jesus was in the wilderness, that he was tempted of the devil, and one of the temptations was, if you serve me, I'll give you all of this. He showed him all the kingdoms of the world, all the gold, all the silver, all the money, all the women, all the cars, all the horses, if you serve me, I'll give you all of this. So right there, even before Jesus burst on the public scene, he was tempted with the devil's blessings. The only problem with the devil's blessings is the price you have to pay for them. When you sign away and sign up for the blessings that the devil sends, you will be blessed, but you will be in bondage to him, not just for the rest of your life, but for eternity. And so that's something we have to be careful about, Tina. We have to be careful. We're always saying, well, why do wicked people have stuff? Why do bad people have stuff? Because the devil gives them stuff. But what they are risking and what they are losing to take from the devil is not going to be worth it. I remember one time we had a little boy in our class, and I'm not going to say his name, but he was a pretty good shoplifter. He actually was a pretty good shoplifter. And I'm talking about elementary school. I'm not talking about high school. And every day he would come to school with something that he stole from Woolworths. Now, you guys, you don't even know what Woolworths is, but he would steal from Woolworths, 5 and 10 cent store. And he would steal, yo-yos. He would steal spinning tops. He would steal marbles. And every day he would come and show off all the stuff he stole. Well, one day he stole a car. At that time was James Bond was out, and he had a James Bond Aston Martin car. It was a very, little toy car about this size. But you push a button, and in the back of the car, the shield would pop up, the shield in his car. Then you push another button, and the guns would come out the hood, okay? And somehow or another, I started to say his name. I talked him into giving me that car. He gave me that car. And I took that car home. And I was playing with it, I'm a real James Bond fan. I was just crazy over James Bond. And my father said, "What is that?" I said, "It's a car." He said, "Where'd you get it?" I said, I finally told him that I got it from this boy. He said, "You take that right back to him." Why? Because of where he got it. You playing with this car and you having all the fun with this car, but where this car came from is going to cause you more trouble than the fun you having playing with it. And that's a lesson I learned when I was in the 2nd grade, that the devil can bless you, but you can't afford the price of the blessings that he brings. And that's why I'm telling you, don't get so caught up in things, but get caught up in your relationship with him, with God. When you get in the place with God, then these things come, but if they don't come, they're not that important, because now you're in relationship with him. So let's not pursue those things, because somebody with those things may offer you those things. And when you take them, you'll discover that you've done more than taken something from somebody. You've given away the most priceless gift that you have. Thank you, Tina, for letting me answer that question. It's so very important. Another question. Is secret place just getting away alone with just you and the Lord, away from other people? Is this why it's referred to as a secret place? Well, yeah, pretty much. It's not just getting away alone. It's getting away in a zone. It's getting away in a frame of mind. Because you've seen people who are sitting right in your presence and they ain't there, but they're somewhere else. The secret place is a place without distractions. A secret place is a place where you don't allow other people to get you there. A secret place is a place where nobody knows where you go. If they know where you go, they don't know what you do there. A secret place is where you kind of have a meeting with God on a regular basis, like Adam and Eve met God in the cool of the evening. So it could be in an office, it could be in the kitchen, it could be in your bedroom, it could be in the bathroom, it could be in a closet. It's just the idea that here is a place that I'm going alone with God. No distractions. Nobody's coming in. Perhaps nobody even knows where I am, but me and God can communicate. And that secret place, as I said, doesn't have to be a physical space. It could be the same place all the time. It could be the edge of your bed, but it's more of a frame of mind. It's more of an attitude. It's more of a state of being where you have cordoned off, roped off all of the things around you and say, during this period of time, it's just me and you, Lord. Whatever you got to say to me, I'm listening. And I know you're listening when I've got something to say to you. Every now and then, we should run away. Not just walk away, but run away to hide in that place, in that space where we can be alone with the Lord. Other questions? Could the devil give Jesus something he already owns? How could the devil give Jesus something? Actually, he cannot. That's the whole point. That was the whole point. But it was a temptation because at the time, Jesus didn't quote unquote have it. Okay, so here is the devil, all right, who was an angel, who fell out of heaven, that Jesus was in and over. And now he's offering to give Jesus something when the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. It makes absolutely no sense, but it is a temptation. Don't forget, he had just been fasting for 40 days and 40 nights. And as a human being, he was weak. As a human being, he was vulnerable. And the devil comes to him and says, you're in the wilderness, you got nothing. You came from Nazareth, okay? Nothing. You know, Mary and Joseph, nothing. But you know what I can do for you? I can give you all of this stuff. Lickety split. I can give it to you now. You don't have to work for it. I can give it to you now. And that's what makes temptation so tempting. That's what makes it so enticing. He's trying to give the devil something that he's already got. Already got. Now, I mean, I could get real straight up with you. Now, how many of us have traded something we already have for something we're trying to get, and what we got is already more than what we're trying to get? But it's so tempting because we don't have it. Because we don't have it. And so you raise a good point when you say, how could the devil give Jesus something that he already owned? Technically, that's true. But practically speaking, when temptation comes in our life and your life and my life, sometimes that thing is wrapped up so pretty. And even if it's yours, it looks better with that wrapping on it than when you had it. And it tempts you to be able to take it. And that's why Jesus was able to resist it, because he knew, in fact, that I can get all of this stuff. In fact, I already own it in the first place. Great question, and I appreciate that one too. Anybody else got a question?
I think that's it.
Okay, that's enough. That's enough. It's 8 o'clock. All right, listen. This Sunday, we're going to continue our series. Our series is Heart Trouble. It's Heart Trouble. And it's based on John chapter 14, verse 1. And I believe it's going to be a blessing to you, or continue to be a blessing to you, because during this pandemic season, there are a lot of people got heart trouble. There are a lot of people who are suffering, a lot of people who are sad, a lot of people who are mourning, a lot of people who are grieving, a lot of people who have heart trouble for all kinds of issues. Everybody's not sick, but they got things that are touching their heart and hurting their heart. And Jesus says to you, let not your heart be troubled. So we're going to continue that on Sunday. I hope that you join us at 10 o'clock right here at Faith Ministries Church. In the meantime, if you and your ministry are interested in being a part of our Faith Online community, we will be meeting on this Saturday at 11 o'clock. You should be able to find that information on our website, especially our ministry leaders, the people that you have designated in your ministry to team up and to head up the online component of your ministry. Those are the people that we want to see on this Saturday at 11 o'clock, and any others who want to help us do this. Okay, God bless you. That's it. We'll see you next time.